Thank you again for judges for taking the time out of your incredibly busy day to come do the 20th annual Milgard internal case competition. I had a chance to speak with you all already, but I just want to say thank you. Today we have 4 teams presenting. Each is comprised of 3 to 4 undergraduate students. They had 1 week exactly to create their actual presentation deck, and then they've had a few days to practice. And today they will have 15 minutes to do their presentation, and then we will have 10 minutes for the question and answer. In the middle of the row back there is Dana, and she will be our timekeeper today, and we'll go over the instructions once the students enter the room. And then today we also are blessed with alumni who has also done the internal case competition. And that's our communication specialist, Noah Carr, in the back, or right there. Just had to call you out, sorry. And then also, you guys all know, but the winner of the case competition today will be presenting for the invitational case competition, which will be on February 27th. And we have 23 teams from around the entire world coming to present their solutions to a case, a totally different case. So with that, I'm going to hand it over.
Welcome, team, to the internal case competition. My name is Dana. I'll be your timekeeper today, and we'll share the rules of the competition. So there will be 4 teams presenting today. This is Team A. Each team will have 15 minutes for their presentation and 10 minutes to respond to questions from the panel of judges. I will announce when there are 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute remaining. If the team is not finished with the presentation when the time runs out, I will stop your presentation. If the team finishes before the 15 minutes are over, we will proceed directly to the 10-minute question and answer period, and no extra time will be allocated for Q&A. I will start my timer when you begin speaking, but watch for my signal because I have to use my phone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noah Sapardi, and we are so excited to be here today to share with you guys our recommendations for Maria's Market during their expansion. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our logistics and operation team who will be guiding us through today's presentation. Joining with me today is Vardhan Prabhakar, Colin Sika, and Eon Hu. To go over a executive summary and agenda, a little brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to dive into what Maria's Market is doing today and what they're going to be doing in the future, and the timeline for the plans that they have set out. We want to ensure that our stakeholders' needs are also met, along with our suppliers that we're already partnered with. And for our consumer, we want to ensure an operation that they are satisfied with purchasing from. From there, my team will go into our 3 recommendations with great detail and thoroughness, and following that, we will go into an implementation roadmap as well as an in-depth risk analysis, which for a company at Maria's size feels almost required. So without further ado, let's begin. Maria's Market was founded in 2003 as a natural foods grocery store here in Tacoma, Washington, and they have battled through the 2008 housing crisis and the coronavirus in 2020. They have battled, and now they stand strong. 21 stores large, and in 2025, they brought in $610 million in revenue. They pride themselves in sourcing local products, and when it comes to international products, they are picky, and they only pick sustainable goods when outsourcing outside of America. And now they're growing. And over the next 10 years, they plan to be in 55 stores across the Western United States, and they are projected to bring in over $1 billion in revenue. In the grand scheme of things, this looks amazing. Maria's is an absolute hit and should have no problem scaling to the size that they want to be, except for one thing. Our COO wants to be a leader in sustainability. That is life cycle, that is waste reduction, and that is scope 3 emissions, things that companies today are putting on the back burner. So our key question answered today is going to be put into 3 different solutions. 1, we want to scale sustainably in order to meet Maria's goals. We want to predict our inventory so that we can reduce our waste, and we want to empower our suppliers to not only help them grow in their businesses, but also for them to join us on the sustainability train. In terms of our current best practices, corporate social responsibility is the benchmark, and Maria's strives to be a leader in one of these three columns: environment, social impact, and governance. When it comes to the environment, that means a waste reduction in our packaging and lowering our emissions. When it comes to social impact, that means ethical sourcing in our international products. And when it comes to governance, that means establishing a code of conduct for our suppliers when it comes to their purchasing decisions. Now, introducing the newest All initiative, what we're calling is All In on Zero. All In on Zero focuses on renewable energy. It focuses on intelligent inventory, and it focuses on removing the obstacles for our suppliers to become sustainable. Our three new strategic opportunities are going to be laid out like this. We want to bring in a new Scaling Sustainably initiative. We want to bring in the highest of technology of artificial intelligence, and we want to bring in a new form of investment, an investment that helps us all, not just Maria's, not just our suppliers, but the consumers as well. Now, I'm going to pass it on to Vardhan to kickstart our recommendations.
Thank you, Noah. So moving on to scaling sustainably. So we want to open a warehouse in Reno. Why is that? Since one third of the Reno city is powered by solar panels, that will help us greatly in becoming free of carbon footprint. Next, we want to make our fleet all EV. As we do have diesel trucks, we want to continue, but at the same time, just switch we want to switch from diesel trucks to EV. Number 3, routing optimization software. We want to implement that. That will reduce our unnecessary miles and save us on fuel cost and delivery time. So the current state that Maria's Market is at. So we have a distribution network at the Pacific Northwest. Our current fleet is full of diesels, and our current routing system is limited. So we're unable to we cannot be efficient. Our key gaps that we want to highlight: network efficiency. We don't have a southern hub. Number 2, fleet transparent. We're not looking at the sustainability of the diesel trucks. And number 3, optimization rigidity, lack of advanced software. All right, here's our plan. So number 1, activate the Reno hub, which means leasing a Reno distribution center. Number 2, rebalance our network flows. So all our long orders will go through Reno. Number 3, electrify our fleet, slowly phasing out the diesels. And number 4, optimize system-wide logistics. So, ROI. So, EV adoption carries out the largest overall impact. Per 3 EV, we have a payback period of 2 years. Internal rate of return is 26%, and a 5-year NPV is $245,000. Cumulative ROI is going from about $3 million to nearly $47 million as investment scale across the program. Moving on to Collins to introduce us to AI operating systems.
Thank you, Vardhan. So when it comes to the AI operating system, at a high level, we're looking at an intelligent inventory management system that looks at the stock levels and reduces the fresh waste. It does this by integrating into already existing POS and store data, pulling real data like sales, like returns, like inventory adjustments. From there, that gets fed into the AI demand forecasting engine. In this engine, the engine looks at previous historical patterns. It looks at seasonality. It looks at promotion. It looks at location. All of these things that would determine smart ordering. And this is the next step, smart ordering. This AI forecasting engine recommends where to order, how much to order, when to order, so that we are reducing our stockouts and reducing waste. From there, it gets distributed to the stores, and the loop is closed with reporting and feedback. And this is how the model continues to improve and learn over time as Maria's Market continues to scale. Here's the big problem. 35% of produce is lost due to waste in the United States every year. And this is massive. And a large part of this is due to the waste that we found is lost at the grocery store level. Not only is this bad for the environment, it's bad for business. We estimate 10% of grocery revenue to be lost each year due to waste. We plan to implement this software in 4 phases. The first phase being piloting in a subset of high-volume stores. We want to start this software in 3 to 5 high-volume stores spread across our different regions with different managers, different demand cycles. That way we can determine if any adjustments need to be made before rolling out to our full phase. The second is standardizing these new ordering workflows. We want to standardize how managers should interact with the system, and more importantly, how the system moves from recommendation to purchasing and how any exceptions are handled. From there, we'll train the store and category teams. We want the teams to be confident in utilizing this software. Through that, we'll scale to all 55 stores in phases, ensuring that operations are not affected by this new initiative. Our main driver is our food waste. According to data, we predict that we can reduce the food waste by 25%. To do this, we need to invest in the system itself. At our current production, we estimate that cost to be around $1.7 million, including operation and installation costs and training costs of the software. However, when looking at the food reduction, the labor efficiency that's produced from not having to do as much manual ordering and inventory adjustments, as well as less stockouts, we estimate an additional $14.6 million of net profit increase at our current production, which rises to a conservative number of $20.8 million annually at our full 55 scale. This directly impacts the amount of revenue that Maria's Market can bring in, as well as working towards our goal of reaching zero waste. At this time, I'll hand it over to Ian to present our Green Co-Investment Fund.
Thank you. Our third recommendation, the Green Co-Investment Fund, focuses upstream at the supplier level where most of the cost pressures and sustainability efforts can be resolved. So at its core, it is a shared risk, shared reward model where Maria's Market partners with trusted suppliers in investments with sustainability. Those investments will be embedded in operations and logistics contracts. Those sustained savings will then be recycled into a revolving growing fund. The context is clear. With tightening Scope 3 regulations, it is a necessity for us to establish this fund. Looking at the current state and gap, the issue is execution, not demand. So capital access for our suppliers are often limited, unavailable. Their financing options are limited, unavailable. But we have to keep in mind the market demand is still substantially growing for sustainable goods. And so we have to implement this fund to fill that void for our suppliers. So with proposed actions, we have 4 tightly linked steps that we will take. First, establishing the revolving fund of $5 million. Then partner with vendors, small, mid-sized to large, international, and local, to design, co-design, tailor loan products. And the most important step of this recommendation, provide contractual capital access. That means contract-backed operations and logistics needs. And that turns sustainability into not a speculative investment, but a bankable investment. And so fourth, supporting community growth. We will focus on these small suppliers. Mid-size, we will also serve the large suppliers as well, but focusing on the small suppliers especially creates sustainable business practices and builds a resilient supply chain around us, Maria Market. Next, we look at a case example to really show how, with a small supplier here, we have a River Valley Produce, a 120-acre vegetable farm, seeking a $240,000 investment on operation upgrades, which includes drip irrigation, solar cold storage, and soil amendment. So this investment will be expensed through our Green Co-Investment Fund, which is once again contract-backed. And from there, we look at the investment impact. So baseline to year 7, growth for annual profit is expected to exceed 359%. Jobs, full-time employment is set to increase 150%. And water usage is set to decrease 40%. So next, let me take you over here to look at the 7-year net benefit for Maria's Market being $245,000. And on the same timeline, River Valley Produce will benefit $1.47 million. And so if we scale this people, planet, profit across a multitude of suppliers of all sizes, the impact compounds. And so to execute this impact, I'll turn it over to Noah.
Thank you. Going into our execution in business, we want to lay out an implementation timeline for you guys. Going to scaling sustainability initiative, we're going to start fast. It is imperative that we start fast. This means securing that warehouse lease in Reno. This means placing those orders of the EV fleet and grandfathering out the diesel trucks. This means beginning the AI route testing so our drivers can get where they need to be as efficiently as possible. When it comes to the AI operating system, we need to launch those pilots in all the pilot stores. From there, we're going to gather all the insights and data, refine the software, and make it so that this will be rolled out into all existing stores and will become the default software used in all 55 stores across the Western America. And for the Sustainability Fund, we're going to launch that $5 million fund, and we want to find 2 to 3 partners to start. And then we're going to scale appropriately into 8, 10, and hopefully by 2036, we will have at least 20 partners in this fund. Going into our risk and mitigation, we could run into a lot of risks with this initiative. For our electric vehicles, we could run into problems with range, and that's going to be mitigated through partnerships, strong partnerships with our local charging networks across the western side of America, on Interstate 5, on I-99, and so on. For our AI recommendations, you could run into inaccuracy problems like AI does today. And this is going to be solved with a human approval process and running regular data audits on this AI optimization. And for credit risks on the investment, we could run into that problem. And this is going to be solved with a strict partner vetting process. We're going to prioritize our long-tenured vendors and suppliers first. Now, to conclude it all in on zero is going to affect us all. You guys, us, the future generations, and so on. Whether it's placing a warehouse in Reno or whether it's funding for solar panels for farms, no effort is too small or too big. And so us as a logistics and operations team wants to personally invite you guys to be all in on zero with us. Thank you, and we are now open for questions.
Judges, we're going to start your 10-minute question answer now. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I'm Laura. Oh, sorry.
Gentlemen, well done presentation. I had a question around the starting fast comment that had been provided by Noah. Noah, you had talked about last the expectation of the EV impact, the expectation of establishing the $5 million fund. I know for me, my question would be, how do you expect to raise that? I didn't see that as part of the presentation. I know you wanted to start fast, but my first question is, how do you plan on the $5 million to establish that fund?
Yes, so Maria's did $610 million in revenue in 2025, and industry average shows that we should have enough profit laid out in reserve to start these scaling initiatives as a whole. Start out with the profit that we've laid out in 2025 from that $610 million in revenue.
So that would be an inside expectation for Maria itself. They will establish the fund. This is
correct. Maria will establish the fund, but they are not open to investments and funding from banks and loans and so forth.
Thank you so much.
To add on to that point, the $5 million fund, we worked closely with the accounting department to account for this in our CapEx. So that is in our plan. The $5 million is solid in our CapEx plan.
Thank you so much.
So I have a question about how you chose the initiatives you were going to pursue. What was the process? How did that look like? How did you identify the 3 things that would be most important?
Yeah, so we first really went through kind of all the situations on the table, right? And then so all the situations. So let's say we have these 3, but then we have more, such as we considered air freight, looked at the emissions on that, looked at the train freight. So we have it all on the table, and from there we piece it apart. We do the cost-benefit analysis. What kind of ROI could we expect from that? And so when we pick it out, we have to choose the most high-impact solutions that increase Maria Market's longevity, long-term value. And so that's why we came up with these 3 solutions.
Did you benchmark other retailers?
Yes.
To do that?
Of course. In our appendix, you can see, so we have sources from the agricultural industry, through resources that are also in our sustainability initiatives. And through there, we took all the industry averages, such as from USDA, and we accounted for that in our assumptions on our models and numbers.
Anybody else?
I have a follow-up question on the loan program. In your risk matrix, you did nod to the fact that there might be some risk associated with this program and that you would account for that through strong vetting process. But what if there's still a scenario in which a supplier defaults on their loan?
Yeah, so me speaking directly on that, so we do account for a minimal defaultancy around, let's say, lower than 4%, expected 1%, but that is expected even with the vetting process. You have to account for discrepancies within that, and so even with that, the 3 recommendations that we have, including really wrap it all together, if one piece falls off, it's not going to destroy the entire program.
And how do you foresee that impacting your relationship with the supplier going forward?
Yeah, I see that as the vetting part. If we do fall out with a partner, I would assume it would be for a good thing. We're no longer going down something that is deteriorating with a partner in supplying. And so we're really looking forward to building those quality relations. And with this fund supporting them, building that supply chain resilience, it will just vet out the ones that we don't want to do work with business. So.
I want to piggyback, I think, on Frank's question about the loan fund and the timing of that at the same time as we're more than doubling our store size to stand up 25 stores and also be starting an investment fund at the same time. It seems like that's a large cash flow risk. I know it's offset by some of the co-investment income, and I wanted to ask more on the River Valley Farms case scenario.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's a phenomenal investment opportunity. Do you think there are 20 more of those also available to have that kind of a return? That return seems outsized.
So the outside return, 359%, I'll answer that directly. So we're really starting from a low base with these small suppliers. So when we're talking about scaling from 4 to 10 full-time employees, accounting for payroll and pure profit, by year 7, the growth is really accounted for and reasonable when you're thinking about starting from a low base for these suppliers. And what was the second half of your question?
Do you think you can find 20 more opportunities like this to invest so little for such a great return?
Yeah. So absolutely. Like I said, we do have demand. We did a survey with our suppliers. We have demand for this. It's all about the execution, and we're ready to execute.
Awesome. Thank you.
When you're talking about the issue of waste, and particularly the produce department or departments that have a high amount of waste, did you entertain any relationships that utilize the waste products and ways that you might benefit from that?
Yeah, that was definitely on the table. When I first presented this possible opportunity, we considered things like donating goods that were starting to become perished to local food banks or local bakeries that could utilize these goods that were maybe not up to our quality standards for selling as a store. But overall, we decided that presenting simply just this side of the business would be the most beneficial. In various ways, you can run into the issue of recommending too many things. And we felt it was best to keep it simple purely by focusing on the AI inventory process. Definitely including using the waste or using the more perished items at the end of their life and distributing those to local food banks and bakeries is definitely part of our plan, just not currently included in these slides. Thank you.
Did you look at localizing supply chains? Could you speak more to that? And what was your analysis to start with that?
Could you elaborate on the question? When you say localized supply chains, what are you referring to specifically?
I'm referring to localizing it in the region here, and you talked about the logistics hub in Reno, but I'm curious about the localizing of supply chains for the region here?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the assumptions that we made is that Maria's Market, already having 21 stores here in the Pacific Northwest, being around for over 20 years, we made the assumption that they already had those great relationships with suppliers across the Pacific Northwest. And our challenge was to how do we create this wonderful supplier relationship, not only in the Pacific Northwest, but also across the Western United States. And this is really where the fun plays into a factor. Not only can we generate returns and lift everybody up with us, it's an opportunity for us to get in long-term contracts with great suppliers that we can have for many, many decades. Thank you.
Regarding the infrastructure for addressing the EV charging gap, I was really intrigued about the logistics behind that. As you recognize it, you need to do that across the country. And when you talk to infrastructure support, can you speak to how you would address the partners as well as being able to expect to be successful in that type of endeavor? That sounds like a significant cost.
Yes, so there's an appendix slide showing the map of Western United States. Recent infrastructure changes in roads on the interstates. There is not a single 50-mile gap without a charging station that is capable of charging these types of semis. So we're going to be partnering up with those electricity providers and those charging stations with us. The infrastructure for having our own stations and having our own plants is currently not in the CapEx that we estimated for. We estimate that to be further down the line in scaling.
Thank you so much.
So what are our competitors doing in this area right now? We want to be a leader. So what are they doing where we could lead? So like the Whole Foods and the PCC and the Sprouts and things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. With Maria's current size, we compared Maria to some of the larger corporations, as was included in the prompt. Like with the fund, this is already being done by companies such as Walmart that are investing in their suppliers. Walmart being a much larger scale operation. And so our challenge was, how can we break that down into a place where Maria can handle this? And so with the different competitors, we aren't exactly sure how they are managing every single one of these, but we can be clear and we can be confident that through our initiatives, through scaling sustainably, through increasing the sustainability fund that will allow not only us to be sustainable, but our suppliers, and to reduce waste at the same time.
And unfortunately, we are at time for the
It's going to be great. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
For your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellery Dixon. This is John DeLuna and Justin Delancey. We are here to present to you the best sustainable opportunities Maria's Market could implement, not only in protecting the environment, but also increase profits for Maria's Market. The three best opportunities we found involve packaging, transportation, and distribution. I will be discussing packaging, Justin will present transportation, and John will cover distribution. When it comes to sustainable packaging, I want to specifically mention food packaging. Maria's Market started as a natural foods grocery store, so before Maria's Market moves towards sustainable packaging for other products like gardening or recreational equipment, I think it's important that we focus on food packaging. And while we know that consumer demand for sustainable packaging is on the rise, sustainable, eco-friendly food packaging specifically is predicted to increase through 2028. One of the most well-known ways of sustainable food packaging is with bioplastic. It refers to a number of kinds of different products. It can refer to bio-based plastic, which is made from corn, biodegradable plastics, which break apart over time, and combustible plastic. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that some of these require commercial decomposing facilities, so Maria's Market should make sure they have access to those before that should be implemented. One of the best ones we can implement, though, Maria's Market implement, is mushroom-based packaging. It is 100% biodegradable and brings nutrients back to the soil instead of polluting. It is made from mycelium root, which are the roots of the mushrooms, and while it is primarily could be used for custom molded products, it will definitely increase the value of Maria's Market for its consumers. And then, of course, there is edible packaging. One of the best examples of this is edible food wraps. Not only do they help prevent waste from traditional petroleum-based wraps, but they are 500 times better at keeping oxygen out of food packaging. If you go to other stores, you can see they have edible straws, edible cups, edible bowls, and edible packaging will only serve to increase the value of Maria's Market for its consumers. To conclude, sustainable food packaging is a great opportunity, as sustainable packaging overall is predicted to have $500 billion of revenue by 2029. And I think Maria's Market, to stay competitive, should get into that. Not only is there a great opportunity for profit, but sustainable packaging is one of the key sustainable practices which will lower the carbon footprint by 30%.
I chose transportation because transportation actually accounts for 28% of emissions within the United States. So transportation alone is the largest contributor of emissions. And because of this, there's a lot of growing pressure from the public as Gen Z, Gen A, and the millennials are dealing with the ever so increasing effects of climate change. And because of this, they're advocating for change from both organizations and the government. And so organizations and the government are shifting towards better sustainable policies and enacting change. One change in particular is Washington State's Clean Fuel Standard. And this allows the state to assess fuel levels to determine carbon intensity to a set standard. And fuel levels below state standards generate credits, which can be used to be sold to producers, and that way that's a way for these organizations like Maria's Market to generate revenue. And then fuel levels above the state standard must buy to meet carbon reduction. So it's a way for organizations like Maria's Market to make money. And some of the opportunities that Maria's Market could implement would be blockchain and AI to optimize routes and drive the growth of intelligent vehicles, which can lead to further optimization and efficiency. They can partner with government and suppliers for further optimization and better contracts. And then they can also utilize more sustainable materials like aluminum wheels for less friction, or reduce energy for less truck idle time. So.
Hello. My name is John. The last point that we wanted to discuss would be the idea of distribution centers. Right now, Maria's Market has a small group of stores. If they were to expand to 55 stores across the entire West Coast, we're recommending that we have a strategic placement of smaller distribution centers at various points, including Sacramento, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, Boise, Las Vegas, and Reno, and Oakland. Those are all situated right near the largest airports because as Maria's incorporates international products, once those get over stateside, they won't have to travel very far to get to the distribution centers, thus eliminating a lot of the transportation costs. From there, the company can use a closed-loop packaging network to bring the products from the distribution centers to the stores themselves. And what that looks like is a reuse box system. As you can see on the top, a lot of companies will buy their packaging materials, load them up, ship them, open them up, and then flatten and discard with 100% waste. If we want to remain eco-friendly, we would use the reuse loop model where we would have more rigid constructed packaging that once we get to the last step, the boxes would then go back onto the delivery trucks so that the trucks aren't going back to the distribution centers empty. They can take returns as well as these boxes themselves to be reused at the beginning point again, creating only a 5% waste of packaging materials such as plastic clips and stuff like that. And then we would look at the environmental impact of creating these distribution centers. Some thoughts are having living roofs, which are a really cool way to both help with the heating and cooling of the building using the actual flow of water flowing down the pipes of the building to cool it down without the need for a lot of expensive machinery. We could also have edible gardens so that the staff can go up there, create a place of community and belonging, which will make them want to be there more. Also implementing energy efficient lighting and plumbing. And we would be able to participate in energy audits, such as the LEED audit, find areas to improve, and then conduct ROI analysis to see exactly how these efforts are working to help our bottom line and be profitable for us. So with that, those are our three main takeaways that we have: eco-friendly packaging, transportation, and looking at the distribution centers. Combining those all together, we feel would help Maria's Market be still known as a local family-run store while expanding out and maintaining its presence in larger areas. Are there any questions for us? Take that, we slide over.
Do you want to go first?
No,
Okay. I'd like to ask a few questions about packaging. What did you uncover in terms of the cost of packaging and how it would impact the consumer in terms of retail pricing, and would that then impact where your customers choose to shop?
When it came to the costing of packaging, there was little research I found. Like, for example, mushroom-based packaging. I could not find a study that actually compared the mushroom-based packaging to, say, other kinds of packaging. But the data does show that there is an increase in demand for sustainable products being packaged in a sustainable way. And I believe that Maria's Market's consumers will only see increased value in that and continue to be loyal and bring in even more consumers over time.
Hi. So what are our biggest competitors' priorities in this area, like Whole Foods, PCC, Sprouts, and Natural Grocer?
I do believe that Whole Foods will probably be the primary competition, but I have not looked into all the other competition that we would be going into. What I see, however, is a great opportunity to get into this.
Awesome. I really like the hub and spoke model of expansion, having the different distribution centers around. I'm curious though about the cost of building our own buildings to have the green roofs rather than leasing distribution space. Did you do any analysis on those back and forth to see leasing versus building our own facilities?
I think I may have misspoke there. We could also look into leasing spaces and introducing our stronger models into those already built spaces would definitely save money in the long run. I think I was looking at what we can add to become a more environmentally friendly. I guess I didn't necessarily mean building our own space, but making the space our own.
I see. So refining your search to places that would fit our environmental.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to delve into the route optimization. So you mentioned using AI and blockchain for that. Could you describe how blockchain would be beneficial and how it would work in optimizing routes?
That I would actually require a bit more research onto that, given that I didn't necessarily know what Maria's Market current technology utilization was. So if there was any more information on Maria's Market's like how transportation sector and how many trucks are utilized and what the routes already currently look like, and the different other ways of transportation. If there was any more data that could be given, that would be really great. And then that way I could look at what's already available in blockchain's current usage. So.
Thanks. You want to go now?
My question was about your transportation and the choice of looking at that space for impact that Maria market could provide. You mentioned the 28% presumably carbon impact just because transportation offers that challenge period. Can you tell me if there was any specific information that you used within Maria's market to determine whether or not transportation would be an area of review for sustainability impacts?
No, I just looked at the overall statistic on carbon emissions within transportation, and I know that transportation does generate a lot of emissions because of that, and a lot of Maria's market, because of its expansion, will have to look at where they are currently expanding to, and then gather data based upon what they already have, and kind of go based off the overall data of emissions emitted.
Across your three solutions of packaging, sustainable transportation, and distribution centers, could you talk more about any analysis you did around return on investment and cost savings?
As far as specifically Maria's market, I do not have any research into that. All I can tell you is that for my own independent research, I've looked at other companies like Whole Foods and Puma, and they have certainly increased their profits over time. In fact, I looked at when Puma implemented their sustainability efforts, their stock price only doubled or even tripled. So I do believe that Maria's market can thrive in the same way.
I think getting exact numbers is something that we're still working on. But the research that we did conduct so far is showing what Ellery mentioned before about the fact that it may cost a little more to implement certain ideas right now, but consumers are willing to pay more for those because they have a personal satisfaction as we move towards a more environmentally conscious timeline, I guess you would say. Just in general, people are searching for those options and willing to put their money towards that.
Did you do any analysis on the threshold of what customers are willing to pay for those changes, and what percentage of people would buy into the increased cost of the packaging and, well, primarily packaging, but the distribution centers and the transportation as well?
And then you mentioned the for packaging, what the rate was.
That was in the introduction for the presentation. I thought that said that customer demand was increasing about 5% for premium products. They're willing to pay that much more extra. But it's also predicted to increase through 2028.
Okay. Yeah. So we have that for that. I have not yet looked into the customer viewpoint on transportation. Right now is more of focusing on how it would impact the environment. Or not transportation, distribution, I'm sorry.
What assumptions did you make about the current state of sustainability efforts at the company? In other words, what did you make any assumptions about what the baseline was of the current efforts, and what were they?
I think going into it, I was comparing our company to similar companies such as Whole Foods, which does implement a lot of good models they're known for being very eco-friendly they've like their salad bars, self-serve areas. They use recycled materials in their packaging. I know when I visit there myself, it's all cardboard and not plastic. And so I think starting out, we were basing it off that and seeing what we can improve from there to create our own model, that would be something that is not anybody else, just like our own company.
Something that is sustainable. Based on the research I saw, sustainable packaging and sustainable practices are still relatively new, so I wasn't able to find as much information about that, but it does still present a great opportunity.
Thank you, Team B.
Thank you.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you all for making it here today. I'd like to start off with a question. How many of you in the past 3 months have purchased at least one sustainable product? Let's get a good show of hands. That's great to see. Now, what about 5? 10? 20? You see, at Maria's, we're posed with a difficult challenge. How do we ensure that every hand can stay raised, not just at 10, but far beyond 20? How can we ensure that everyone can have a hand in our sustainability efforts in purchasing a product fully traceable from source to shelf? I'm Pablo Sanchez. I'm your strategic project lead. And today, we're going to be walking you through who we are, what we represent, what's going on in the industry, followed by our initiatives and our methodologies, and lastly, our financial analysis. Now, I have the pleasure of welcoming you all to my team of Margaret Samischuk, Javen Kopich, and Moira Kelly, and together, we represent Maria Market's retail operations and logistics team. Now, for those of you unfamiliar on as to who we are, I'd love to give you all just a quick run through on as to our history. We were founded in 2003 here in Old Town Tacoma, and we later expanded in 2008 across to the South Sound. And as of today, we're currently looking to expand across the West United States to 55 new stores, with projections to surpass over $1 billion in sales in our expansion over the next 10 years. And it remains our key objective to ensure that those $1 billion are earned in as sustainable a manner as possible. It remains our mission to become global leaders in circular logistics and zero-waste operations. We envision ourselves as a candid and as an open company that uses a triple bottom line approach of people, planet, and profit, tied and tethered alongside the UN Global Compact to define and establish and assess our methodologies and our initiatives, our sustainably developed goals, in order to improve our operations, and with that, what we provide to our consumers. Now, with that said, I hand it off to Moira to talk about our market opportunities.
Thank you, Pablo. So when we did our research, we found an abundance of market opportunities. The two that I want to point out to you is a demand for traceability and transparency. 88% of our consumers report greater loyalty to brands that take on sustainable actions. Another look is a revenue. A McKinsey study found that products marketed as sustainable saw 28% cumulative growth over 5 years, which means that sustainability drives sales. Next, I will pass it over to Margaret.
Thank you, Maura. Taking a look at our retail operations and logistics, we first look at the global green economy as a whole. It is currently valued at $13.4 trillion and includes renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, circular economy, and green buildings. Next, looking specifically at the sustainable technology, it is growing at a compounded annual growth rate of 11.6% and is expected to surpass $61 billion by 2030. Next, looking at ESG investments, we see that they're currently valued at $41 trillion and are expected to hit $50 trillion by 2025. Next, looking at the voluntary carbon market, we see that it is growing from $2 billion to $50 billion by 2030. Next, I'll pass on to Javen for our risks and threats.
Thank you, Margaret. So before we get into our initiatives and methodologies, we first must recognize some of the risks and threats to the retail sector. As companies switch to a more sustainable mindset, one of the biggest problems they face is Scope 3 emissions. In fact, Scope 3 emissions account for 75% of global emissions from companies. Additionally, a Gartner report shows that 91% of IT leaders in the industry show that AI is the top technology of 2026. As we all know, AI isn't exactly a sustainable resource. So what we have to do is manage sustainability and competitiveness. We have also seen record highs and lows in storms that have ravaged croplands across the United States and the world. This is an incredibly important factor as this is leading to an increase in crop price, which gets directly translated to our customers. Additionally, while we have all these sustainable ideas in mind, we have to ensure that it matches our budget. I will now be moving on to initiative methodologies, which will be led by Margaret.
Thank you, Javen. Now for our first initiative, we're looking at zero waste and circular packaging. Our main goal with this initiative is to achieve a 90% reduction in waste by 2035. We will do so through designing a circular approach, redesigning packaging, food donations, composting, and customer incentives. Now, taking a look at a context of our industry, we look at leading retailers in the market such as Walmart, Target, and Costco. Walmart is currently 67% towards accomplishing their goal of all private brand packaging being either recyclable, reusable, or compostable. Target has a goal of achieving 50% reduction in food waste by 2030, and Costco shows us the value of partnering with sustainability. They're saving over $8 million and 4 million pounds of plastic per year with optimized packaging. Our step-by-step on how we will accomplish this. First, we will partner with suppliers to redesign our packaging to reduce excess plastics and use more recycled content. Our second step is to expand our donations and composting to cut food waste in half by 2030. Our third step would be to leverage our employees by training and to incentivize our customers to further encourage waste reduction. Our fourth step would be to use the life cycle cost analysis. Through this, we will optimize our packaging and shipping to ensure that every material used will reduce waste and cut costs long term. Now we have designed a roadmap which will take you through our years 3, 5, and 10. By the third year, all Maria's Market private brand packaging will be switched over to sustainable. By year 5, all of our food waste will be cut in half, and by year 10, we will achieve our goal of a 90% reduction in waste. Now you might be wondering, how exactly will we achieve that? I'm glad you asked. We have a 3-step plan on how we will do so. Our first step is to partner with an app called Too Good To Go, which will save 14.1 tons of waste for every $1 million in sales. Our second step would be to collaborate with local farms, charities, and communities to further reduce waste. And our third step would be to adjust the pricing of items that are nearing their expiration date, which will further incentivize quick sales and minimize waste. Now, some key performance indicators would be our waste reduction rate, our packaging sustainability percentage, and our food waste reduction. Our outcomes with this would be a 90% reduction by 2035, 100% of all private brand packaging by 2035, and a 50% reduction in waste by 2030. Thank you. I'll now pass it on to Javen for the second initiative.
Thank you, Margaret. So for our second initiative, it is a climate smart expansion. One of the biggest goals we hope to gain from this initiative is a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions throughout the course of the 10 years. Before we dive into our initiative, we first must understand some industry context. A climate smart expansion gives companies a time and example to be able to address sustainability concerns that show themselves. For some data, building emissions show 39% of global energy-related carbon emissions. Additionally, supply chain emissions are 26 times that of operational. When we look at the people aspect of our triple bottom line, we see that 6.1% of Americans live in verified food deserts across the United States. This number is far too high. We painted a step-by-step to how we go about addressing these issues. The first step is, of course, choosing where we will build our new stores. The second step is considering the materials that we use. We will be using eco-friendly materials to help reduce emissions and also save over time. Third, our supply chain is absolutely crucial for these new stores. What we need to do is optimize our trucking routes, as well as set up central warehouses for cross-store delivery, additionally as working with local suppliers to reduce our Scope 3 emissions. Our last step is establishing a sustainable standard, and we can do that through a LEED certification. This brings us to our strategic placement. What we offer you today is what we call the Oasis Pilot Program. This program will place 4 of our new stores, one in Washington, one in Oregon, one in Idaho, and one in California, in recognized food deserts. This gives us the opportunity to give back to our community in areas where people do not have access to local supermarkets. Additionally, it comes with opportunity zones, which means Maria's will have little to no competition. On top of that, to help combat cost, we will be able to utilize market tax credits that are offered for building in these sort of zones. This brings us to our LEED Gold certification. LEED is a global recognized standard that is known for sustainability. What this looks like for us is using sustainable materials, such as cross-laminated timber and low-carbon concrete, as well as focusing on renewable energy with low-pack refrigeration systems. Tying back to our first goal, we need to focus on recycle and composting. This means having on-site recycle and composting stations. And last but not least, natural lighting with auto-off functions. If there's one thing I want you to take away from the LEED certification, is that it pays for itself. Many studies have shown that LEED leads to a 0% upcost premium, with others showing 1 to 5%. But what we know is that LEED pays for itself. Over the course of the 10 years, we know that we will save on lower energy, water, and maintenance. To paint a picture for you, we built a roadmap. By year 3, it's our climate smart site selection. By this time, we will have our sites designated as well as build the designs for sustainability. By year 5, some of our LEED Gold certified stores will already be built, and we will venture across the entire West Coast. By year 10, we know we can hit our goal of a 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Now, we have a lot of KPIs, and while I would love to go over all of them today, we are limited on time. A few that I would like to talk about is our Scope 3 emissions and logistics emission. We will measure this and are hoping to achieve a 3% annual reduction each year, and we'll also be looking at our supplier engagement rate. We hope to target 80% by 2030. We will now be moving on to ethical sourcing, which will be led by Moira.
Thank you, Javen. So our last initiative is to achieve 100% supplier compliance with our private brand Rustin Good and labor standards by 2035. Some industry context for you all. Studies conclude that nearly 3 in 4 consumers will actively switch to brands known for ethical sourcing if given a choice. We see this with more than 60% of U.S. business leaders believe supply chain sustainability helps retain and attract customers. And we see this in practice with Whole Foods, where 70% of Whole Foods produce is organic versus the 15% industry average, cementing strong brand loyalty and justification in the premium pricing. For a step-by-step for you all on how we'll do this, we're going to identify and assess high-risk suppliers to prevent forced labor and labor rights, especially in those food deserts that Javen was talking about. We're going to implement and enforce a company-wide ethical sourcing and supplier code of conduct. We're going to strengthen supply chain transparency through audits and join industry initiatives to ensure accountability. A roadmap for you all. By year 3, we want to achieve 50% of supplier fully compliant with Rustin's ethical sourcing standards. Year 5, ethically certified products expansion. So we're going to have a 10% of inventory certified as ethically sourced through third parties. And then by year 10, fully compliant with an achieve 100% supplier compliance, 15% ethically certified products. And our KPIs. So our 4 KPIs in this section are supplier compliance rate, number of supplier audits completed, number of verified fair trade or ethically certified products, and lastly, internal employee satisfaction scores. We're going to track this through 100% supplier ethical compliance by 2036, over 95% supplier audits completed annually, 15% ethically certified products by 2036, and lastly, 10% lower employee turnover in the industry average. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Pablo.
Thank you, Moira. Now, at the end of the day, we're expanding, we're growing, and with that, at an exponential rate. And where the question arises of how do we do this efficiently? I think at Maria's Market, it's analogous to saying, how do we do this sustainably? Now, with that said, our current course of action was to do a comparative analysis, looking at competitors such as Walmart, Kroger, and Target to see how much they're spending on sustainability. And what we saw was the total capital required over the next 10 years was $32,100,000. Our first initiative of climate smart expansion would take up $20 million over the course of 10 years. And with that, zero waste logistics at 22% at $7 million, and then ethical sourcing being 16% at $5.1 million. Now, lastly, I'd like to draw all of our attention to what it is we're doing here at the end of the day. What we do impacts families, it impacts communities all across the supply chain. And because of that, we need to commit and assess what it is we're doing in the first place to be as sustainable as we can. And in doing so, with these implementations and these measures, communicate to you all how we're progressing through this so that we can continuously improve our own operations and how we serve the customer to better provide a more sustainable tomorrow. We thank you. We'll leave the floor open to any questions.
Thank you. I have a question. I love it that you included KPIs. Can you tell me a little bit about the process that you went through to decide which aspects you were going to prioritize and measure?
Yeah. So for us, it fall in line with the comparative analysis that we did. We asked ourselves, okay, what is Target doing to measure their progress and their initiatives? Same thing with Costco, same thing with Walmart and Kroger. And with that, that's how we wanted to set a baseline for what it is we're measuring to basically be on par with industry standards.
I'm intrigued by the food desert location. So, one, do you think you're going to have the infrastructure there and the population to support your sales? And are you diverging the competitive advantage of having a high quality that we're known for, and then also now moving into markets where nobody else is? So you're kind of splitting those.
Right. So that's a beautiful question. So there's definitely a lot of concern when people think about food deserts because they think about it as a market. Why is nobody else there? So if we're able to go back to the slide real quick, there are places known as opportunity zones and non-opportunity zones within the food deserts. Opportunity zones are recognized areas that there's data supporting that companies will actually thrive there. And as we move into these zones, we're not going to reduce our quality and product. We'll make sure that we stay consistent, especially with the LEED certifications.
Thanks.
Of course.
So all of those investments that you mentioned, they look rather expensive, and you did mention that consumers do seem willing to pay a premium. Is that true for Maria's too? Is that the expectation to cover all these costs, or do you think that there are also savings opportunities wherein we could reduce prices to capture a larger market?
Yeah. I mean, as Javen mentioned, with our strategic placement, there's definitely certain areas where there's going to be tax incentives in as to where we build our stores. And with that, we know that the upfront cost is going to be what's heaviest here with our initiatives. Though with that, the return of investment that we see in implementing sustainable designs is for us far outmatches the upfront cost that we would have in taking on these initiatives.
And I would like to add to that. So one of the beautiful things about the LEED certification is that they have a bunch of data on how the certificate saves money over years, from energy, from water usage to maintenance. There's plenty of data. We had a couple data points on the LEED slide about how that will actually save over the course of years. So although it does seem like a very high upfront capital, we know that it'll eventually pay itself out.
Do you see that as being reflected in prices for consumers going forward, or just increasing margins?
So yeah, I would say it would reflect the price that consumers see. So obviously, we still have to make enough income to pay for these expenses. So the idea is that we're incorporating all these sustainable operations and cutting costs wherever we can so that it's not reflected to the customer.
Thank you.
My question first begins with you anchoring people, planet, and profit. I was hoping you could expound upon the expectation of $1 billion in 10 years. Is that the sustainability savings, or is that profit based upon your analysis and engagement?
So the $1 billion in 10 years was the data we were giving for the actual prompt. It's Maria's Market over the course of the 10 years is expected to expand to 55 stores and reach $1 billion in net sales.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
My second question is in regard to your KPIs. There had been one question that was asked, but I wanted to dig a little deeper and ask you, based upon the KPIs, if there was a failure rate in any one of the KPIs that you identified, what is your expectation of recovery? How do you see that recovery plan come into place? And is there a time frame that must be met to ensure that delta doesn't become an issue for you?
I would say just continuously tracking, right? We'd have to continuously track and see the progress that's being made in waste diversion, for example, right? We would have to look quarterly, see what's happening, see what's effective in what we're doing. I think if there is a decrease in the KPI, it's representative of how we're operating. And with that, we'd also have to look at the given context, see what's happening within the industry as a whole. And overall, it would simply be a matter of assessment and keeping ourselves in alignment with how we're tracking and how we're progressing and how we're going through our operations, controlling at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. And my last question has to do with the comparative analysis that you did, or the stores, if you will, that you chose in order to have comparative data. You had mentioned Target and Kroger, for example. I wanted to know how you felt that their data comparison impacts underserved communities, as you had made mention of an impact audience that you had in mind.
Right. So when comparing it to those stores, we know that they're obviously on a much larger scale. So we scaled it to our store with the number of stores and our net sales. So Target and Kroger, they release ESG and reports and where they explain how they have affected each communities. We plan to do the same after implementing all of our sustainability efforts. So we'll be very open and transparent about how we're affecting the communities.
Thank you.
When you were talking about the food deserts, you talked about the quality of the product being maintained. Are you going to also be able to make the cost of the product affordable for the consumers in those areas?
Would you have an answer for that?
So yeah, so the food deserts, what it is that there's no stores in that location, but that doesn't mean that our suppliers aren't going to be able to supply it to that location. So although we may see a very small increase in price, what we're doing with the LEED certification, with the sustainable materials and saving money all around is an effort so that we don't have to raise price for our consumers.
Could you talk more about the life cycle cost analysis and how that is going to reduce carbon emissions, particularly in Scope 3, and what that's going to do for the return on investment overall over your 5-10-year life cycle?
Would you mind, sorry, just very quickly, just repeating the question just one more time?
Yeah. Talk more about the life cycle cost analysis and how that's going to reduce carbon emissions and create a better return on investment.
Yeah. So in terms of, I think we're really speaking about our climate smart expansion here in terms of Scope 3 emissions. At the end of the day, we mentioned that we want to implement AI, and that's where we see most of the benefits taking place in Scope 3 emissions. We want to implement a program where we have analysts who can use AI to see and optimize routes. I think that's where we see most of the benefits being reaped in Scope 3 emissions. How can we decrease the amount of time being spent transporting goods, right? In finding out that information, right? And then applying it. That's where we see the benefits taking place. Now, of course, it's going to have its maintenance that we have to look at. And with that, it's upfront costs. But again, the benefits that we see in taking on such a program, we see as beneficial in the long run. Yeah.
That's great. As a follow-up to that, talking about AI, I think we all know that the use of AI in data centers has a huge impact on communities' energy and water use. Did you do any analysis on that in terms of thinking along the lines of ethical sourcing as an another aspect of supply chain impact on other communities? So it may not be directly in the community where you're doing the distribution centers, the operations, but it may be on adjacent communities. So did you do any analysis on that?
I would say I think that's a really interesting question. I know for ethical sourcing and for our supplier code of conduct, I think it would be interesting to add that to the code of conduct and make sure those data sources are anywhere near those food deserts or anywhere else that would have an impact on our consumers.
Back to the food deserts. You mentioned something about labor rights within those areas. Could you expand upon that, please?
Yes. Can we go back to that slide real quick?
Yeah.
So I believe that the labor rights was in reference to our Rustin brand of goods. Within the food deserts, I don't believe that we expanded too much on labor rights within those food deserts, but it'll be our supplier code of conduct will be spread across every single store. Every single store will have the same applications.
Sorry, the supplier code of conduct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well done. Thank you all.
Thank you, Team C.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're Team D. I'm Katarina, and with me are Brittany, Marari, and Sky. We're going to show you 3 operation and logistical moves that will improve Maria's market scale from today's footprint to 55 stores, making our goal of sustainability a cost to serve advantage, not an added expense. Each move is designated to improve margins reduce volatility, and strengthen trust, all within staying realistic during rapid expansion. To do this, we must start with the main constraint we can't overlook. This slide explains our strategy that customers want sustainability but won't consistently pay more for it. In 2025, 49% of customers bought sustainable products and 36% wanted to, but price was the number one barrier. Our rule is simple. If sustainability raises shelf prices, it won't scale. Maria's supplier sources scan local and global markets. Growth increases both supply chain and store-level exposure. From this, our solutions must reduce costs across the value chain, not in one place. Here are the 3 moves that meet that rule. We recommend a package of 3 moves that work together. As Maria scales, wins and mistakes both will be amplified. Strategy 1, Scope Site. A Scope 3 supplier scorecard with a packaging cost out operating system backed by a third-party sweep. This initiates supplier emissions, packaging, human right risk visible, and managed like a P&L. Strategy 2, Delivery Hubs. Scaling a direct-to-consumer distribution network and automation, phased manual to automated when density proves out, so online and business-to-business don't destroy margins. Strategy 3, Charge Park. A store energy pack with solar canopy and EV charging deployed only where it pays back. Together, these moves turn sustainability into an advantage of the scale, buy smarter, deliver smarter, and run stores cheaper. Now Murari will start upstream with Scope Site, showing how supplier decisions set up the cost curve for everything else.
Scope Site is our foundation, composed of Scope 3 packaging, third-party sweep, human rights risk visible, and managed like a P&L. The mechanism is simple. By leveraging contracts and standards to drive down cost emissions rather than relying on goodwill. In practice, we collect data from our suppliers, report Scope 3 to an analytic third-party sweep, auditing, tracking carbon footprint, identifying hotspots, and involving suppliers in our sustainability strategy. We evaluate, scale, and implement actionable steps, ensuring an enforceable scorecard. This is an A-field scorecard designed to drive cost out, not complexity. Packaging weight in cube per unit drives unit cost damages and palletization. Unit OTIF in damage rate, on time in full, failures in expediting and waste. Freight mode in miles, a direct cost emissions lever. Emissions proxy. Activity times an emissions factor so we can act before data is perfect. Labor agency practices and forced labor screen to avoid high-impact compliance risk, freedom of association, and worker voice policy, a practical signal of labor conditions. Audit traceability status so claims can be verified. Corrective action cycle time, because what matters is how fast issues get fixed. The primary value is cost of goods sold, freight reduction with typical payback under 12 months because it's mostly process, contract leverage, and not heavy capex. Scaling from 6 to 18 months. Financially, here's what that looks like at a $1 billion scale and what leadership measures monthly. At Maria's $1 billion scale target, we're aiming for 0.3 to 0.8% cost out, or roughly $3 to $8 million per year. The program cost comes from packaging right sizing to lower unit cost, and damages freight optimization, and risk reduction with fewer disruptions. We track percentage of spend covered, packaging grams per dollar revenue or unit, freight costs per case, and cube utilization, plus damage and returns, in a Scope 3 intensity proxy. Metric tons of carbon dioxide per revenue by category. This only works if it's executed in phases, so here's the phased approach. In the first 0 to 90 days, we keep it narrow, select 2 controllable Scope 3 categories, build the 80/20 suppliers list, covering roughly 60 to 80% of the supplier cost base, and implement the 8-field baseline OTIF, damage, and packaging size. By 3 to 6 months, we will test supplier contracts, packaging specs, plus verified improvements and shared savings, along with right term test and a first supplier QBR cadence. By 6 to 12 months, we scale into sourcing decisions to reach at least 60% coverage, and we run a corrective action cycle. For labor human rights risk, we first screen, audit, fix, and finally verify. Beyond 24 months, we embed standards into onboarding and private label design and run continuous cost out projects across packaging, yield, energy, and freight with audit-ready reporting. Scope 3 operating system scales when at least 60% spend is covered, packaging specs and verified on time in full, performance and damage rates are improving. Next, Brittany will move downstream to the customer doorstep, Doberry hubs, and how we will make online grocery profitable while expanding access.
Doberry Hub solves a problem every grocer has. If you scale digital without a plan, the last mile cost will eat your margins. This redesigns fulfillment so online and B2B can grow without destroying profits, while also expanding access in underserved areas without the cost of building full stores. Here's the network concept and why it pays out. We run 2 kinds of hubs that only do pickup and delivery for both direct-to-consumers and B2B clients. The point is to make these orders cheaper by shortening delivery routes and lowering the cost per order so we can grow without having to build full stores. And we're realistic about it. This scales over 2 to 5 years and it makes its money back in around 3 years. To make it audible, we show the math. The ROI comes from real operation improvements that workers can handle more orders per hour, drivers make more deliveries per route, and cost of order goes down. When you're doing around 3,000 orders a week, saving $6 per order, that equals $936,000 a year. And if automation costs $3.5 million to install, it pays for itself in 3.7 years. If volume grows to 4,000 orders a week, that's around $1.25 million a year in savings and close to 2.8 years in payback. What really matters is that these hubs lower how much money we need to expand because they give us flexible options, like picking orders inside existing stores, using backrooms as small warehouses, running manual hub without automation, or only adding automated micro-fulfillment where order volume is high enough to justify it. The key is the order we do things in. We make sure that there is enough demand first, then only do we invest in automation. In the first 0 to 90 days, we set up 1 manual hub that serves 2 to 3 zip codes using a minimum viable product order management system, along with basic picking and routing tools. During this time, we established the baseline number for cost per order, units per hour, miles per stop, and on time in full delivery. We also launched B2B delivery route pilots with places like restaurants, schools, and care facilities to increase how many stops each route makes. By 3 to 6 months, we can carefully expand the service area and use route optimization to increase deliveries per route. This is when we start to clearly see our first performance trends in cost per order, miles per hour, on-time delivery, and substitution rate. By 6 to 12 months, we make a decision about automation using a stage gate approach. We only add micro-fulfillment centers if consumer demand is dense enough, and we only repeat the model if the cost per order stays between our target for 8 to 12 weeks in a row. After 24 months, we replicate hubs in areas with strong online demand and in underserved neighborhoods using selective micro-fulfillment along with electric delivery vans or cargo bikes where numbers make sense and can continue to optimize delivery routes without optimization. Now, Sky will take the final mark, Charge Park, and close with how full system scales across 55 stores.
Charge Park is our store-level efficiency engine. The principle is discipline. We cut energy costs and deploy solar and EV charging only where it pays back. LED lighting plus controls typically pay back in 1 to 3 years, often faster with rebates. Refrigeration improvements matter because refrigeration is over 40 to 60% of store energy. Solar canopies are site-dependent and often needed incentives, financing, and EV revenue to be attractive. So we treat them as selective flagships. Timeline-wise, canopy flagships are 9 to 24 month effort end-to-end. Here's what we do and why it's operationally reliable. We start with refrigeration. We fix leaks and retrofit doors because that's where the load is. The LED lighting plus controls is 30 to 60% savings potential. An energy management system locks savings in and keeps performance from fading. The solar canopy and EV charging, we focus on flagship locations and rely on incentives, such as the IRS's Clean Electricity Investment Credit and EV revenue to clear the hurdles. And the reason for this matters is scale. Supermarkets often face over $4 per square foot in energy costs, which is nearly $200,000 per year for the average square footage grocery store. Here's the phased out rollout, so expansion doesn't create 55 different energy standards. Phased 1 is measured and controlled. Energy audits and load breakdown, LED controls plan, electrical management systems vendor selection, and refrigeration links standard operating procedures with baselines using kilowatt hour per square foot and energy costs per store. Phase 2 is where savings show up on the bill. With the LED controls, EMS and Wave 1 commissioned, refrigeration retrofit begins, and we design a level 2 EV charging pilot for 1 to 2 stores. Phase 3 scales refrigeration, verifies persistence after commissioning, runs the EV pilot live, and screens solar candidates by rates, incentives, and structure. Phase 4 standardizes specs into all new stores and deploys selective solar canopies only for qualifying sites, with annual recommissioning and resilience upgrades. To manage all three moves together, leadership reviews one monthly dashboard: cost to serve, service reliability, and sustainability risk coverage. Now we'll close by tying all three moves back to the same outcome: scaling without increasing our prices. Here's the integrated logic. Scope Site lowers upstream costs and risk through supplier discipline. Dovery Hubs lower last mile costs, reduce new store capital expense, and protects margins as digital orders grow. ChargePark grows Maria Market's brand image, diversifies income channels, lowers store operating expense, and standardizes energy performance across all 55 stores. And because these are operational levers, contracts, utilization, stage gates, and energy fundamentals, Maria's can scale sustainability without asking customers to spend more. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions.
Let's start with Ty. Anyone want to go first this time?
I'll start. No, definitely, I start.
Oh, okay. With all the different components to each of your initiatives and them varying from location to location, what type of credit do you anticipate receiving from your customers for what you're trying to accomplish?
I'll take the lead on that. We're studying the image of what we want people to see us as. There is going to be a capital expense of things like a solar park, but that's why we're only going to one flagship location. We want people to drive by and see what we're at and see who we are and have that resonate more than just going home and ordering your groceries. Now you can charge your car. You can do multiple things at the same location, but there's a 30-minute incentive that we want to offer where we're bringing more people in by the first 3 minutes. Our first 30 minutes are free for EV charging level 2. But the average customer, 74% of customers spend about 44 minutes. So that means we'll actually gain 14 minutes worth of charged costs back. So there's a little bit of a balance there, but mainly we want to set ourselves apart from just being not just the place that you get grocery stores, but the place where you also can get your energy done too. However, that doesn't scale to 55 well. So that's why the Dovery Hubs balances that by expanding our ability to reach more customers without requiring them to come into the store. So we're approaching two different market segments with that.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about your process for determining what your top three priorities are. How did you prioritize that?
We actually did a decision matrix, and we were going to include it in this, but it ended up kind of getting lost in the sauce a little bit there. So the rationale was, what's going to be the best cost-effective way for us to set us apart and actually cause meaningful improvement, not just a 1-2% kind of variation. We're not just trying to optimize trucks and things like that. We want to really scale this to all of our stores.
So tell me a little bit about your decision matrix. So what was in there? Give me a few examples.
Scope 3 came out to our number 1. It turned out to be what we considered to be the most implementive and most effective by not just affecting our store, but also our suppliers. So it's a bigger reach. Then after that, we decided that the Dovery Hubs would be most likely the number 2 because that lets us go from 21 stores to 55 stores the absolute fastest with the lowest amount of capital expense. The charge park is a little bit of a dream, but at the same time, we do think that that image and that brand identity is really important for Maria's Market in the expanding markets as people move away from going into grocery stores.
And given that Maria's Market wants to be a leader in this area, how does this stack up against what our competitors doing, like the PCCs and the Sprouts and the Whole Foods and things like that?
Well, here's a great relative, and I don't mean to take all the questions. This one's actually something I'm really interested in. Just 2 days ago, you might have seen in the news that Amazon Fresh closed, and 16,000 people were let go by email at 2:30 in the morning from an automated system. That's a very big impact. And so one of the approaches Amazon wanted to do with that is they were trying to optimize the customer experience in the grocery store, which is inverse of what we're trying to do. We actually want to remove the customer. We don't even want people to come in. We don't want them to go to all of this stuff unless it's the flagships. We want the delivery hubs to serve online orders, and we want to be able to get to the customer faster, cheaper overall, so that we're not spending as much with things like checkout lines and a pretty store with pretty displays and things like that, but rather we're bringing food in and we're bringing food out and getting it to customers faster with lower costs.
I'm curious to know a little more about the delivery versus the retail. Do you have any analysis on how many orders are coming through grocery delivery versus retail?
We know it's growing. We know that in the societal approach, it's going to be increasing too. As people offload as much as they can to either apps or ordering or having someone deliver something, we know that that is a trending market.
This question is for anybody. So there was a slide that mentioned controllable scope 3 categories. Could you expand upon that, please?
By controllable scope 3 categories, we're referring to kind of like the steps that are integrated to maintain Maria's Market more sustainable. So we had the example of the 8-field scorecard as well. But essentially, it's choosing, there's upstream and downstream for scope 3, and it's ultimately looking into what aspects of scope 3 and the emissions that are affecting global emissions and how we can improve and reduce the effect of global warming as well. So we could look at the creation of products, it could be the supply chain, it could be the trucks and the emissions released from the trucks as well, and looking into like the suppliers as well, how we could reduce like the time in between when it takes like orders and the emissions that are released. So more efficient processes, and then planning and assuring that we can reduce those emissions and be further more sustainable.
You made reference to 40 to 60% for refrigeration costs. Was that fleet specific, or is that infrastructure for Maria Markets in general?
Infrastructure for Maria Market specifically, just the style and the design of a lot of those stores are not the highest efficiency. They're meant for opening and moving a lot of stuff. They're not necessarily meant for optimized of efficiency of energy use.
Was there an estimable value for that particular sunk cost, or is there a return on investment time that you've already anticipated based upon that particular value?
Without knowing Maria's real expenditures, we could only fabricate. We've guessed off of 3,000 orders per week is what we're referencing at. And not necessarily for the exact value. We're not sure of what the square footage is, or how many applications or how many appliances are actually in there. Instead of just coming up with a rough number, we went based off of the number of orders. So the amount of food coming in and coming out.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. You've invited me to dig a little deeper.
Please.
Just as it relates to how you determine whether or not that delta was going to be significant, the orders versus the actual monetary value that you could presume. Can you help me further with your logic about how that may not have been as material as it appears you interpret it to be in your overall approach?
Specifically the 40 to 60% reduction in energy?
Absolutely.
That's
For
using-
refrigeration costs.
So that's using just what we found to be as industries that are similar to Maria's Market have gone from their current systems to an LED specific system. That's where those numbers came from. So we've tried to apply them to our stores based off of how much orders we were assuming to have, where we're not the most experienced with logistics. So we are generalizing in a little bit, but we're coming from most likely what our competitions are already experiencing.
Okay, and thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Okay, this is for somebody who hasn't had a chance to answer a question yet. So what were your assumptions about the current state of sustainability initiatives at Maria's? Like what was your assumption about where they are now before the expansion that you were going to build off of? Like what are they doing today?
Just to clarify, like what they were doing beforehand versus how we wanted to, I guess, improve.
Right. So right now, Maria's got a few stores, and they're expanding to add 50 odd more across the western United States. And I'm assuming that we're building upon existing initiatives already. And what are those? What were your assumptions about those existing initiatives? What are they doing today?
Well, we assume just like every other grocery store you go to nowadays, they have LED lighting, just like Skylar was saying. They it's also starting to become more common in back rooms and warehouses that once no one's using those rooms, those lights turn off to save emissions and lighting bills and stuff like that. So we kind of ruled out those, I guess, topics because it's very common due to the stores that we were researching. I personally went to a bunch of different like PCC and Trader Joe's, all those like markets that are already specializing themselves in trying to be more sustainable. And I saw that commonality of LED lighting and lights turning off sometimes when they aren't like used in Trader Joe's. Sometimes you can see the back rooms, they were off most of the time unless someone actually walked in and out. So we took that and ruled it out, I guess, because if there's that many stores already constantly doing it, there's less doubt that Maria's Market is not doing that.
So talking about the vetting process that you have for your suppliers.
And unfortunately, we're at our time for question and answer.
We'll come find you after.
Light turns red.
So the judges are now going to deliberate in the room that you guys were in previously. You guys can go ahead and hang out here for a while, and then we're anticipating 20 to 30 minutes for deliberations. So please help yourself to some snacks, water, and we'll let you know when the results are in. Thank you. All right. Obviously, this was a tough one. So first of all, I'm going to do some thank yous because I have to, and I think it's important to recognize everybody who's helped put this competition together. So first, I don't know where Sean went, so I'll wait for him, but hopefully he's coming back. But I'd like to recognize our Milgard School Business staff who has helped put this event together, sent out all the communications, taken pictures, doing the timekeeping. So we have Carrie in the back, and we have Dana right here as a timekeeper, and then we have Noah, of course, taking them all the shots. And then our amazing technology guru in the back, that's Zach Curtis. He films every year. He actually just really loves the competition, so he comes and he always volunteers to do this for us. So, and then Sean Schmidt is actually on our CLSR board and has actively participated in a lot of the internal case competition and mixer events. He's actually the author of this case as well. So
give it up for him. I wish he was here right now. I thought he did such a great job choosing a topic that is interesting to everybody, and then that was open enough that you guys just came up with so many different creative solutions. And I think you all should be very proud of yourself because each and every team did a fantastic job. And I know for some of you, this is like your first time. This is for some of you, you don't like to speak in public, but regardless, you did it and you did it well. So I think that that's important to note. So just to make sure everybody's aware, the winner of this competition will end up going to our Milgard Invitational Case Competition, which we have 23 teams this year. And it will be at the end of February on the 27th. And next, I'm going to actually just quickly have our judges introduce themselves and then what company they're with.
Hi, everyone. Christoph Strauss, co-founder of a local organization called Circular Pacific Northwest, urban planner focused on sustainable urban systems. And yeah, great presentations, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and do the difficult job of judging you all.
I'm Sherelle Faggy, and my company is Stormans Incorporated, but I own independent retail grocery stores. So it's very interesting. No, you're good.
Frank Boykin, formerly of U.S. Department of Commerce, Minority Business Development Agency, agency that was responsible for business centers across Washington State. That's about $40 million just to Washington State, and currently a council member for the City of University Place. You all did an exceptional job, by the way.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Jacqueline Drumheller, currently retired. Formerly, I started and directed the sustainability programs for both Alaska Airlines and Biorad Laboratories, and I actually taught a couple classes in CSR here a few years ago.
Derek Collins, I'm with Link Logistics Real Estate, and again, everybody did a great job. So.
Hi, everyone. Emily Knutson. I've got 15 years of experience across consulting and corporate in the ESG sustainability space, most recently at T-Mobile, also former instructor at Milgard.
Thank you, judges. And I just have to point out that Derek Collins also is alumni. And I think 10 years ago, he won the internal case competition twice and went to Mixer. So the year before and then also the year he graduated. So, which brings me to thank you also to last year's winners who are here except for a -1. But in the back there we have Jake Ness and we have Mitch Castle and Adam Weller. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. So next I'm going to, just one last thing. So, if you guys want feedback, usually we have a preliminary round and then also a final round. This year we did it a little differently to kind of even the playing field a little bit. We did get some feedback from some of the judges. So if you are interested, feel free to just email the CLSR email and we'll make sure that your team gets that information. All right, here we go. Drum roll. I'm gonna do the names. So first I'm gonna announce the third place winner. And that is Team D. So that's Norari Flores, Katarina Redis, Brittany Rosales, and Skylar Tilton. All right. And then for our second place, sorry, I have a lot of scratch notes here. We have Team C. And that is Javen Coppage, Moira Kelly, Pablo Sanchez, and Margaret. And then our winning team today is Team A. So we have Yon Hu, Vardon, Colin, and Noah. So if you all can take a moment after to do some pictures, that would be great. Oh, no, you guys already did your pictures. That's awesome. I don't think the judges would be opposed to talking with you all. So if you're interested, I know some of them are okay with hanging out. Congratulations again to everybody. I'm very proud of you all. Every single team was amazing. Good job. And thank you.